The wind screamed across the frozen wasteland of Hithera, seven like a beast in pain. Taewon pulled his jacket tighter around his body and pushed forward through the blinding snow. He could barely see 5 feet ahead of him. The storm had come out of nowhere, just like everything else on this cursed ice planet. He should have stayed at the mining station. His supervisor, Daehyun, had told him not to go out for the routine equipment check. But Taewon never listened. He was stubborn like that. Now he was paying the price, fighting his way back through a blizzard that could freeze a man solid in minutes. The temperature gauge on his wrist device showed minus 40 degrees, and dropping. His thermal suit was good, but not that good. He needed to get back fast, or he would die out here. Just another stupid human who thought he could beat nature. That was when he heard it, a sound that did not belong in the howling wind. It was faint, almost lost in the storm, but it was there, a cry, high-pitched and desperate. Taewon stopped walking. Every logical part of his brain told him to keep moving. He was already in danger. Whatever was making that sound was not his problem. He had maybe 20 minutes before his suit failed, maybe less, but he could not make his feet move forward. The sound came again, weaker this time. Something was dying out there in the cold. He cursed under his breath in Korean and turned toward the sound. His supervisor was going to kill him for this, if the cold did not kill him first. Taewon pushed through the deep snow, following the cries. They were getting louder now, or maybe he was just getting closer. His legs burned with effort. Each step was a battle against the wind and the ice. Then he saw it, a dark shape half buried in a snowdrift. It was metal, twisted and broken, an escape pod, the kind used for emergency evacuation from ships. It must have crashed here recently, because it was not completely covered yet. The cries were coming from inside. Taewon reached the pod and wiped away the frost from a small window. His breath caught in his throat. Inside were 2 small creatures, huddled together and shaking. They were like nothing he had ever seen before. They had scales that shimmered purple and silver even in the dim light. Tiny wings were folded against their bodies. Their eyes were large and frightened, staring up at him with desperate hope. They were babies. Alien babies, yes, but babies nonetheless. And they were freezing to death. The pod's door was jammed. Taewon pulled at it with his gloved hands, but it would not budge. He looked around frantically and spotted a piece of broken metal nearby. He grabbed it and used it as a lever, putting all his weight behind it. The door groaned and finally gave way with a screech of tortured metal. Cold air rushed into the pod, and the 2 creatures cried out louder. Taewon reached in carefully. He did not know if they would bite or scratch or worse, but they just looked up at him with those big eyes, shivering so hard their whole bodies shook. He pulled off his thermal jacket, leaving only his base layer. The cold bit into him immediately, but he ignored it. He wrapped both creatures in the jacket and held them close to his chest. They were surprisingly light, no heavier than house cats. They made small chirping sounds and pressed against him, seeking his warmth. Now came the hard part, getting back. Taewon turned and started walking. The creatures shifted in his arms, trying to get closer to his body heat. He could feel them shaking even through the jacket. How long had they been in that pod? Hours? Days? The wind pushed against him like a wall. His arms ached from holding the creatures. His body screamed at him to rest, to stop, to give up. But he kept putting one foot in front of the other. Left, right, left, right. He focused on that simple rhythm, and nothing else. His wrist device beeped a warning. Core temperature dropping. 15 minutes until system failure. Taewon walked faster. The creatures in his arms had stopped shaking so much. That was either a good sign or a very bad one. He tried not to think about it. Through the snow, he finally saw lights. The mining station. He had made it. Taewon practically fell through the entrance door. The warm air hit him like a physical force. His legs gave out, and he collapsed to his knees, still clutching the jacket and its precious cargo. Daehyun came running from the control room. He was a big man with a permanent frown, but his eyes were kind. Those eyes went wide when he saw what Taewon was holding. What in the name of stars is that? Daehyun asked, kneeling down beside him. Taewon unwrapped the jacket slowly. The two creatures blinked up at them both. They looked even stranger under the bright lights of the station. Their scales reflected the light in rainbow patterns. Small horns poked up from their heads. Their wings twitched slightly. "I found them in a crash pod," Taewon managed to say. His teeth were chattering. They were dying. Daehyun stared at the creatures, then at Taewon, then back at the creatures. "Do you have any idea what species these are?" Taewon shook his head. "Does it matter? They are alive. That is what matters." "This is going to be a problem," Daehyun said, but he was already helping Taewon to his feet. "But we will deal with it tomorrow. Get yourself and those things warm. You all look half frozen." Taewon carried the creatures to his small quarters. The mining station was not fancy. Everyone had a tiny room with a bed, a desk, and a small bathroom, but it was warm and safe, and right now that was all that mattered. He set the creatures down on his bed and turned up the heat. They looked around with curious eyes, taking in their new surroundings. Then they looked back at him and made those chirping sounds again. Taewon smiled despite his exhaustion. "Hungry?" He found some nutrient paste in his storage locker. It was bland stuff that all the miners ate, but it had calories and vitamins. He squeezed some onto a plate and offered it to the creatures. They sniffed it carefully. Then one of them, the slightly larger one, took a tentative lick. Its eyes brightened, and it started eating quickly. The smaller one joined in a moment later. Taewon watched him eat and felt something strange in his chest. Pride, maybe, or satisfaction. He had saved 2 lives today. That had to count for something. When they finished eating, the creatures climbed into his lap. They curled up together, their small bodies fitting perfectly in the space between his crossed legs. They made contented sounds, almost like purring. Taewon ran his hand gently over their scales. They were warm now and smooth like polished stone. The creatures did not pull away. Instead, they leaned into his touch. "What am I going to do with you two?" he asked quietly. They just looked up at him with trusting eyes. Eyes that said he had become their whole world in the space of an hour. Taewon sighed and carefully moved them to his bed. He laid down beside them and pulled a blanket over all 3 of them. The creatures immediately snuggled against his side, seeking his warmth even though the room was plenty warm now. As he started to drift off to sleep, Taewon noticed something. The creatures had markings on their scales, patterns that seemed to glow faintly in the darkness. They were beautiful, like constellations mapped onto living skin. He reached out and traced one of the patterns with his finger. The creature made a happy chirping sound in its sleep. Tomorrow, he would figure out what they were. Tomorrow, he would decide what to do next. But tonight, he had saved 2 innocent lives from a storm that would have killed them. That was enough. Taewon closed his eyes and let sleep take him. He did not see the way the creatures' markings glowed brighter when they dreamed. He did not see the way those markings formed symbols that would have been recognized anywhere in the galaxy as signs of incredible power and ancient bloodlines. He did not know that far above the planet, a massive warship had just emerged from hyperspace. A ship so large it could carry an army. A ship painted black as the void between stars. On the bridge of that ship, a tall figure stood before the view screen. His eyes glowed with barely contained fury and desperate hope. He had been searching for weeks, following every lead, chasing every rumor. His children were down there. He could feel them, alive, safe. But in whose hands? The figure clenched his fists, and the metal railing beneath his hands groaned and bent. Someone had his heirs. Someone had taken what belonged to the most feared being in 17 systems. They would pay, or they would be rewarded beyond measure. That depended entirely on what he found when he reached the surface. The warship began its descent through the atmosphere, cutting through the storm clouds like a knife through silk. Its arrival sent electromagnetic waves across the entire planet. Every sensor in the mining station lit up with warnings. But in Taewon's quarters, 3 beings slept peacefully, unaware of the storm that was about to break over their heads. A storm far more dangerous than any blizzard. The Shadow King had come for his children. 2 weeks had passed since Taewon found the creatures in the snowstorm. He had named them Hannah and June. Hannah was a larger one with scales that shone more purple in the light. June was smaller with scales that leaned towards silver. They had grown fast, now the size of medium dogs, and they followed him everywhere. The other miners had gotten used to seeing them around. At first, everyone was nervous. Strange alien creatures were not usually good news. But Hannah and June were gentle and curious. They liked to watch the miners work and would tilt their heads when someone spoke to them, as if trying to understand. Taewon had discovered they were incredibly smart. When he said their names, they came running. When he pointed at something, they looked where he pointed. They even seemed to understand simple commands like sit and stay. It was remarkable. This morning, Taewon was in the maintenance bay fixing a broken drill when Dae-hyun came running in. His face was pale and worried. "We have visitors," Dae-hyun said quietly. "Important ones. They're asking questions." Taewon felt his stomach drop. "What kind of questions?" "About unusual findings. Strange creatures. Crash pods." Dae-hyun looked at where Hannah and June were sleeping in the corner. "They're looking for something. I think they're looking for them." Taewon's mind raced. He had known this might happen. Someone would come looking eventually, but he had hoped for more time. Time to figure out what Hannah and June were. Time to understand why someone had abandoned them in that escape pod. "Who are these visitors?" Taewon asked. "They say they are merchants, but they move like soldiers. Very dangerous soldiers." Dae-hyun put his hand on Taewon's shoulder. "Be careful. These are not people you want to lie to." Taewon looked at Hannah and June. They had woken up and were watching him with those intelligent eyes. Could they sense his fear? He thought maybe they could. "I need to hide them," Taewon said. "Just for now, until I know what these people want." Dae-hyun nodded. "The maintenance tunnels under the station. No one goes down there except for emergencies. They will be safe." Taewon gathered up Hannah and June quickly. "Come on, you two. We need to go somewhere quiet for a while." The creatures chirped and followed him without question. Their trust in him made his chest tight. They had no idea they might be in danger. The maintenance tunnels were dark and narrow, lit only by emergency lights. Taewon found a small room with old equipment stored in it. He made a nest of blankets and set out food and water. "Stay here," he told them firmly. "Be quiet. I will come back for you soon." Hannah made a worried sound. June pressed against Taewon's leg, not wanting him to leave. "I know," Taewon said softly, scratching behind June's small horns. "But this is important. Stay hidden. Stay safe." He left them there and sealed the door. His heart felt heavy as he walked back up to the main level. The visitors were in the station's common room. There were 5 of them, all dressed in expensive clothes that looked out of place in the rough mining station. But their eyes were hard and watchful. These were not soft merchants who spent their days counting money. The leader was a woman named Yuna. She was tall and beautiful with sharp features and eyes that missed nothing. When Taewon entered the room, those eyes locked onto him immediately. "You're Taewon?" she asked. Her voice was smooth but cold. "I am," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "We are looking for something that may have crashed on this planet recently," Yuna said. She walked slowly around him, studying him like a hunter studying prey. "An escape pod. Small. Made for emergency use. Have you seen anything like that?" Taewon shook his head. "The storms here are bad. We do not go out unless we have to. If something crashed, the snow would have covered it by now." It was not technically a lie. The pod was covered by snow. Just not anymore. Yuna stared at him for a long moment. Taewon forced himself to meet her eyes. He thought of Hannah and June hiding in the dark tunnels, scared and alone. He would not let these people take them. "Interesting," Yuna finally said. "The miners here all say the same thing. No one has seen anything unusual." She smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. "Perhaps we are looking in the wrong place." "Perhaps," Taewon agreed. Yuna and her people left an hour later. But Taewon did not feel relieved. He felt more worried than before. Something about the way Yuna had looked at him suggested she did not believe him. He waited until their ship had left the planet before going back down to get Hannah and June. They were exactly where he had left them, huddled together in the dark. When they saw him, they rushed over, making happy chirping sounds. "It is okay," he soothed them. "They are gone now." But for how long? That night, Tae-won could not sleep. He lay in his bed with Hannah, and June curled up beside him, their warm bodies pressed against his sides. They were snoring softly, completely trusting that he would keep them safe. He had to know what they were. He had to understand why people were looking for them. At midnight, Tae-won carefully got up without waking the creatures. He went to the station's computer room and logged into the Galactic database. It was not a great database, just the basic information that mining colonies had access to, but it was something. He searched for information about creatures with scales, wings, and the ability to grow so fast. Nothing came up. He searched for escape pod crashes in the sector. Hundreds of results, none helpful. Then he tried searching for the symbols he had seen glowing on their scales, the patterns that looked like constellations. The computer thought for a long time. Then it brought up a single file. A very old file with most of the information marked as restricted or classified. But there was one word he could read clearly. Ryukai. Tae-won's hand shook as he read what little information was available. The Ryukai were an ancient species, dragon-like beings with incredible power. They could survive in space without ships. They could manipulate energy with their minds. They were considered the most dangerous species in galactic history, and they were supposed to be extinct. Tae-won sat back in his chair, his mind reeling. Hannah and June were Ryukai. That was impossible. How could two members of an extinct species just crash on a randomized planet? Unless they were not random. Unless someone had been trying to hide them. He kept reading. The file mentioned that Ryukai bonded for life with their parents. The bond was so strong that separating them could cause psychological damage. It also mentioned that Ryukai offspring were extremely valuable. Their scales, their blood, their organs, all could be sold for fortunes on the black market. Tae-won felt sick. Those visitors had not been looking to return lost children to their family. They had been looking for a prize to capture and sell. Over the next few days, more ships started arriving in the system. Not landing, just orbiting the planet, watching, waiting. Sang-woo, the station administrator, was getting nervous. "Something big is happening," he told the miners. "I am getting encrypted messages from corporate headquarters. They want to know if we have found anything unusual." The pressure was building. Everyone could feel it. Then one night, Tae-won was working late in the equipment bay. He was tired and not paying attention. He reached for a tool and accidentally grabbed a piece of hot metal fresh from a forge. He cried out and dropped it, but the damage was done. His hand was burned badly, the skin red and blistering. Hannah and June were beside him in seconds. They had been sleeping nearby, as they always did. They made worried sounds and pressed close to him. "It is okay," Tae-won said through gritted teeth. "Just a burn. I will be fine." But Hannah placed her small clawed foot on his injured hand. June did the same with his foot. And then something incredible happened. A warm golden light began to glow from their touch. It spread across Tae-won's hand like liquid sunshine. The pain vanished instantly. The burns healed before his eyes, the skin knitting back together until there was no sign of injury at all. Tae-won stared at his healed hand in shock. Then he looked at Hannah and June. They looked back at him proudly, as if saying, "See what we can do?" "You can heal," he whispered. "You have power." This changed everything. If people knew what Hannah and June could do, they would never be safe. Every criminal, every corporation, every government in the galaxy would want them. That same night, Tae-won's friend Hyen came to his quarters. Hyen was the station's tech specialist, good with computers and networks. He looked scared. "I intercepted a transmission," Hyen said quietly. "It was encrypted, but I broke the code. To one. The people looking for those creatures are from the Galactic Underworld, the criminal syndicates. Why would criminals want them?" To-one asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. Hyen pulled up a holographic display from his portable device. "Because of who their father is." The transmission mentioned someone called the Shadow King. They said his heirs are missing. He is offering an entire sector of space as a reward for their return. Tae-Won felt the blood drain from his face. The Shadow King? You know who that is? Hyan asked. Everyone knew who the Shadow King was. He was the most powerful crime lord in 17 systems. Brutal, ruthless, and absolutely terrifying. He controlled smuggling, weapons, illegal tech, everything that happened in the galactic underworld. Governments feared him. Armies could not touch him. And Hannah and June were his children. There is more, Hyan said grimly. The transmission also said the Shadow King has promised death to whoever took them. He thinks they were stolen. Tae-Won looked at where Hannah and June were sleeping peacefully on his bed. They looked so innocent, so small. It was hard to believe they were the heirs to a criminal empire. What do I do? Tae-Won asked. Hyan shook his head. I do not know, but you need to decide fast. Because according to that transmission, the Shadow King is coming here himself. Outside in the cold darkness of space, more ships were arriving. An entire fleet was gathering around the small ice planet. And at the center of that fleet was a vessel larger than all the others combined. A ship that legends were told about in the darkest corners of the galaxy. The Eternal Night had arrived, and with it came to being known across 17 systems as the Shadow King. The hunt was over. Now came the reckoning. The morning after Hyan's warning, Tae-Won stood in the station's observation deck and watched the sky. Even through the constant snow, he could see them. Ships, dozens of them. They hung in orbit like dark stars, waiting. Hannah and June sat at his feet, their heads tilted up to watch the sky with him. They had grown even more in the past few days. Now they were as large as big dogs, and their wings had developed enough that they could fly short distances. Yesterday, June had flown across Tae-Won's quarters, crashing into a wall, but looking very proud of himself. Your father is up there, Tae-Won said quietly. He is looking for you. Hannah made a questioning chirp. She pressed against his leg. Sensing his worry, Tae-Won had spent all night thinking. He had 3 choices, none of them good. He could return Hannah and June to their father and hope the Shadow King would be grateful instead of angry. He could keep hiding them and risk everyone on the station getting hurt. Or he could try to run, though he had no idea where he would go. Every choice felt wrong. Dae-hyun found him an hour later. Sang-woo wants to see you. Now! The administrator's office was crowded. Sang-woo sat behind his desk looking 10 years older than he had last week. Hyan was there too, along with several other minors. Everyone looked at Tae-Won when he entered. Close the door, Sang-woo said. Tae-Won did. His heart was pounding. I am going to ask you a question, Sang-woo said slowly. And I need you to tell me the truth. Do you have something on this station that belongs to the Shadow King? There was no point in lying anymore. Tae-Won nodded. I found 2 creatures in a crashed escape pod during that storm 2 weeks ago. I saved them. I did not know who they were. Are they here now? Sang-woo asked. They are in my quarters. Sang-woo rubbed his face with both hands. Do you have any idea what you've done? The Shadow King thinks someone stole his children. He is not known for his patience or mercy. I did not steal them, Tae-Won said firmly. I saved them from freezing to death. There's a difference. Tell that to him when he tears his station apart looking for them. Another miner said angrily. Wait, Hyan interrupted. He had been working on his portable computer. I have been digging into restricted files all night. I found something. The escape pod that crashed here was launched from the Shadow King's personal vessel. But not by him, by someone named Ja. Who is Jia? Tae-Won asked. Was Ja? Hyan corrected quietly. She was the Shadow King's mate, the mother of his children. According to these files, she was killed 3 weeks ago by a rival criminal faction. They attacked the ship. In her dying moments, she put the twins in the escape pod and launched it with random coordinates. The room went silent. Tae-Won felt something twist in his chest. She was trying to save them. She succeeded, Hyan said. The pod's random trajectory brought them here. The chances of that happening were billions to 1. But it worked. The attackers could not track them. Neither could the Shadow King. Until now, Sang-woo said grimly, he has been searching every system, every planet, and somehow he has tracked them here. Tae-won thought about Hannah and June, about how they trusted him completely, about how they had healed his hand without hesitation. They were not dangerous criminals. They were children who had lost their mother and been thrown into the cold to die. I need to talk to him, Tae-won said suddenly. Everyone stared at him. Are you insane? Dae-hyun asked. You want to talk to the Shadow King? He is their father, Tae-won said. He is looking for his children. I have his children. We need to talk. He will kill you, Sang-woo said flatly. Maybe, Tae-won admitted, but if I hide and he finds them anyway, he will definitely kill me, and probably everyone else here too. At least this way, I can explain what happened. I can tell him I saved them, not stole them. Hyen shook his head. This is a terrible plan. Do you have a better one? Tae-won asked. No one did. That afternoon, Sang-woo sent a message to the fleet in orbit. It was simple and direct. The Shadow King's children are safe on this station. Their rescuer wishes to speak with him. The response came within minutes. A single ship detached from the fleet and began descending through the atmosphere. It was enormous, easily the size of a small city. Its hull was black as the void between stars, and purple energy crackled across its surface. Every alarm in the mining station started blaring. The electromagnetic interference from the ship was overwhelming. Computers flickered and died. Lights went out. Communication systems failed. The miners gathered at the windows to watch the ship land. It settled onto the ice outside the station with a deep thrumming sound that could be felt in the bones. The ground shook. Snow melted in a perfect circle around it from the heat of its engines. He is here, Dae-hyun whispered. Tae-won went to his quarters and found Hannah and June. They were agitated, pacing back and forth and making nervous sounds. They could sense something, too. Your father is here, Tae-won told them gently. He came for you. But before you see him, I need to talk to him. Do you understand? Hannah and June looked at each other, then at him. They pressed close to his sides, one on each side, protecting him or asking for protection. Tae-won was not sure which. Stay here for now, he said. I will come back for you. He walked to the station's main airlock. Half the miners had gathered there, all of them looking scared but standing together. Dae-hyun, Hyen, and Sang-woo stood at the front. You do not have to do this, Dae-hyun said. Yes, I do, Tae-won replied. The outer airlock opened. Cold air rushed in, along with snow and the smell of ozone. And then figures began walking through the snow toward the station. Dozens of them, all heavily armed and wearing black armor. They formed two lines leading from the ship to the airlock, and between those lines walked a single figure. Tae-won's breath caught. The being that entered the station was massive even in his humanoid form. He stood over 7 feet tall, with broad shoulders and a presence that seemed to fill the entire room. His hair was black with silver streaks. His face was handsome but hard, like it had been carved from stone, and his eyes glowed with a faint purple light, ancient and powerful and terrifying. This was Kong Min, the Shadow King, the most feared being in 17 systems. He looked at the gathered miners with those glowing eyes. Several people took involuntary steps backward, but Tae-won stood his ground, even though every instinct screamed at him to run. Kong Min's gaze settled on him. You are the one who sent the message. It was not a question. His voice was deep and resonated with power. When he spoke, Tae-won felt it in his chest like distant thunder. I am Tae-won, he said, proud that his voice did not shake. I am the one who found your children. Where are they? Kong Min asked, his hands clenched into fists. Where are Hannah and June? Tae-won blinked in surprise. You know their names? I named them the day they were born, Kong Min said, and for a moment something painful flashed across his face. Their mother and I chose those names together. Now tell me where they are before I lose what little patience I have left. They are safe, Tae-won said quickly. They are in my quarters. Kong Min stared at him for a long moment. The air felt heavy, charged with potential violence. Everyone in the room held their breath. Show me, Kong Min finally said. Tae-won led the way through the station. Kong Min followed, with several of his armed guard behind him. The Shadow King had to duck through doorways. His presence made the narrow corridors feel even smaller. They reached Taewon's quarters. He opened the door. Hannah and June were huddled on the bed, looking toward the door with wide eyes. When they saw the tall figure behind Taewon, they froze. Kang Min stepped into the room. He stared at his children, and they stared back at him. "Hannah," he said softly. "June." The twins made a sound Taewon had never heard before. A deep, resonating cry that was joy and pain and relief all mixed together. They launched themselves off the bed, their wings spreading wide. They flew clumsily across the room and crashed into their father. Kang Min caught them, falling to his knees as he did. He wrapped his arms around both of them and pulled them close. His eyes closed. His whole body shook. The most feared being in the galaxy was crying. Taewon watched this reunion and felt his own eyes burning. Whatever else Kang Min was, whatever crimes he had committed, in this moment he was just a father who had found his lost children. Hannah and June chirped and nuzzled against their father, their tails wrapping around his arms. They were crying too, tears rolling down their scaled faces. After a long moment, Kang Min looked up at Taewon. His eyes were still wet, but they were sharp and assessing. "You saved them," he said. "Yes," Taewon replied simply. "Why?" "Because they needed help. Because leaving them in that storm would have been wrong." Taewon met those ancient, powerful eyes without flinching. "That is what we do. We help those who need it." Kang Min stood slowly, still holding his children. You risk your life in a storm to save creatures you do not know. You protect them when dangerous people come looking. You give them names and care for them as if they were your own. He tilted his head. "You're either very brave or very foolish." "Maybe both," Taewon admitted. Something that might have been a smile crossed Kang Min's face. "My children have bonded with you. I can see it. They see you as family." It was true. Even now, while Hannah and June clung to their father, they kept looking back at Taewon, making sure he was still there. "What happens now?" Taewon asked. Kang Min was quiet for a moment, studying him. "That depends on you." Kang Min stood in Taewon's small quarters, still holding his children close. Hannah and June had their small heads pressed against his chest, but their eyes kept darting to Taewon. They chirped softly, as if asking why their father and their rescuer were not standing closer together. "You are bonded to them," Kang Min said, his glowing eyes fixed on Taewon. "This is not a small thing. For my people, such bonds are sacred. They cannot be broken without causing great suffering." Taewon swallowed hard. "I did not mean to bond with them. I just took care of them." "That is how bonds form," Kang Min replied. "Through care, through protection, through love." He paused, his expression unreadable. "My children see you as their second parent. They will grieve if separated from you." The weight of those words settled over Taewon like a heavy blanket. He looked at Hannah and June, and his chest felt tight. The thought of never seeing them again hurt more than he wanted to admit. "What are you saying?" Taewon asked quietly. Before Kang Min could answer, alarms started blaring throughout the station. Red emergency lights flashed on and off. Sang-woo's panicked voice came through the speakers. "All personnel to emergency stations. We have multiple ships entering the atmosphere. They are not responding to hails. I repeat, we have hostile contacts incoming." Kang Min's expression turned cold and hard. He handed Hannah and June to Taewon and walked swiftly out quarters. Taewon followed, the twins clutched in his arms. They reached the observation deck, where everyone had gathered. Through the windows, they could see ships descending through the storm. Dozens of them, painted in red and black. They were smaller than Kang Min's vessel, but there were many more of them. "The Crimson Syndicate," one of Kang Min's guards said, his voice tight with tension. "Byung-ho's fleet." "Who is Byung-ho?" Dae-hyun asked. "My enemy," Kang Min said simply. "He has wanted to destroy me for years. But he has never been strong enough to face me directly." His eyes narrowed. "Until now. He thinks finding me on the ground, separated from my main fleet, gives him an advantage. Can you fight them all?" Sang-woo asked nervously. Kang Min did not answer. He was staring out at the approaching ships, calculating odds in his mind. Tae-Won felt Hannah and June trembling in his arms. They could sense the danger. He held them tighter and looked at the miners gathered around him. These were good people. Simple workers who just wanted to do their jobs and go home. They did not deserve to die because of a war between criminals. "We need to evacuate the station," Tae-Won said. "There is no time," Kong-min replied. "Those ships will be in firing range in 5 minutes. They will destroy anything that tries to leave." The first explosion rocked the station. Everyone grabbed onto something to keep from falling. Alarms screamed louder. Another explosion followed, then another. The Crimson Syndicate was bombarding them from orbit. "They are trying to destroy the station," Hyen said, his face pale. "They do not care who is inside." Kong-min's hands clenched into fists. Purple energy began crackling around his body. "I will not let them harm my children. Not again." He turned to his guards. "Protect the humans. All of them. That is an order." Then he looked at Tae-Won. "Keep Hannah and June safe. Whatever happens, keep them safe." "Wait," Tae-Won said. "What are you going to do?" Kong-min smiled, but it was not a kind smile. It was the smile of a predator about to hunt. "I am going to remind the galaxy why they fear me." He walked to the airlock. His guards moved to follow, but he waved them back. "Stay here. Protect the station." "My lord, you cannot face an entire fleet alone," one guard protested. "Watch me," Kong-min said. He stepped out into the blizzard. The airlock door closed behind him. Everyone rushed to the windows to see what would happen. For a moment, nothing. Kong-min stood in the snow, looking up at the sky. Then his body began to change. He grew larger, his humanoid form shifting and expanding. Scales erupted across his skin, dark as a void with stars seeming to move within them. His face elongated into a dragon snout. Massive wings unfurled from his back, each one the size of a building. His tail extended, thick and powerful. In seconds, Kong-min had transformed into his true form, a dragon so large that the mining station looked like a toy beside him. He was magnificent and terrifying, a being of pure power. With a roar that shook the ground, Kong-min launched himself into the sky. His wings beat once, twice, and he was gone, disappearing into the storm clouds. "Did that just happen?" Dae-hyun whispered. Tae-Won could not speak. He just held Hannah and June and watched the sky. The battle began moments later. Even through the storm, they could see flashes of purple light. Explosions bloomed in the upper atmosphere. Ships fell from the sky, trailing fire and smoke. And through it all, they caught glimpses of Kong-min's massive form, moving faster than something that size should be able to move. But there were too many ships. Even Kong-min could not fight 50 warships alone. One ship broke through his defense and dove toward the station, its weapons charged, ready to fire. "Take cover," Sang-woo shouted. The weapon fired. A beam of red energy lanced down toward them. It would hit the station's main structure. It would kill everyone inside. But then something unexpected happened. Hannah and June pulled away from Tae-Won. Before he could stop them, they flew toward the nearest window. Their small bodies began to glow with golden light, the same light they had used to heal his hand. "No!" Tae-Won yelled, reaching for them. But they were already working together. The golden light spread from them, expanding outward like a shield. It covered the entire station just as the red beam hit. The beam splashed against the golden shield like water against rock. It could not penetrate. The station was protected. Everyone stared in shock. Hannah and June hovered in the air, their wings beating steadily, their small bodies blazing with power. They were just children, but they were also Rikai. Ancient power ran in their blood. "They are protecting us," Hyen said in awe. More ships attacked. More beams hit the shield. But Hannah and June held firm. Their bond with Tae-Won and the other humans gave them strength. They would not let their friends be hurt. In the sky above, Kong-min saw what his children were doing. He saw them protecting the humans who had shown them kindness. Something shifted in his ancient heart. He roared again, but this time it was different. It was a call, a summons. His main fleet, waiting in orbit around the planet's moon, heard that call. hundreds of ships suddenly appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. They were Kong Min's ships, his army, his power. The Crimson Syndicate ships suddenly found themselves outnumbered and outgunned. They tried to retreat, but it was too late. Kong Min's fleet surrounded them. The battle turned into a slaughter. Within an hour, it was over. The ships that survived fled into hyperspace. The rest were either destroyed or captured. Kong Min descended back to the ground and transformed into his humanoid form once more. He was covered in cuts and burns, but he was alive. He walked back into the station where Hannah and June immediately flew to him, exhausted from maintaining the shield but proud of what they had done. "You protected them," Kong Min said to his children, touching their small heads gently. "You protected the humans." Hannah and June chirped tiredly. Then they flew back to Tawan and curled up in his arms, falling asleep almost instantly. Kong Min watched this with an expression Tawan could not read. Finally, he spoke. "You asked what happens now." Kong Min said, "Here is my answer. You will come with us. You will live on my ship and help raise my children, not as a servant, but as family, as their guardian." Taewon's eyes widened. "You want me to leave everything and come with you?" "My children need you," Kong Min said simply. "And perhaps I need someone like you as well. Someone who will speak truth even when it is dangerous. Someone who values life over profit." He paused. "I am offering you protection, wealth, and a place in my household. What is your answer?" Taewon looked down at Hannah and June sleeping in his arms. He thought about his small quarters, his simple life, the quiet existence he had known. Then he thought about never seeing these two again, about them growing up without him. "Can I bring friends?" Taewon asked. Kong Min raised an eyebrow. "Friends. The people here helped me protect Hannah and June. They stood with me when it was dangerous. They deserve to be protected too." Kong Min considered this. Then he nodded slowly. "Any who wish to come may come. I will find places for them." Dae-hyun stepped forward. "I will go. Someone needs to keep Taewon out of trouble. I will go too." Hyan added, "This sounds more interesting than mining ice." Several other miners volunteered as well. Not all of them, but enough. Sang-woo clapped Taewon on the shoulder. "You saved 2 lives in a snowstorm and ended up changing your entire future. That is either incredible luck or incredible fate. Maybe both," Taewon said, echoing what he had told Kong Min before. As the sun set over the frozen planet, preparations began. Taewon packed his few belongings, said goodbye to the place that had been his home, and prepared for a journey into a life he could never have imagined. Hannah and June stayed close to him the entire time, making happy chirping sounds. They were going home, and Taewon was coming with them. The Shadow King watched all of this and felt something he had not felt in a very long time. Hope. Hope that his children would grow up differently than he had. Hope that they would learn compassion and kindness from this strange human who had saved them. Hope that maybe, just maybe, the future could be better than the past. The eternal night was larger inside than Taewon had imagined possible. Corridors stretched in every direction, wide enough for Kong Min to walk through in his full dragon form. The walls were made of some dark metal that seemed to absorb light, but purple energy lines ran through them, providing illumination. Taewon walked through these halls with Hannah and June at his sides. They had grown even more in the past week, now the size of large wolves. They could fly properly now, their wings strong enough to carry them for hours, but they still preferred to walk beside him, their tails occasionally brushing against his legs. "This is your new home," Taewon told them softly. "What do you think?" Hannah chirped and looked around curiously. June pressed his head against Taewon's hand, seeking comfort. Despite being on their father's ship, surrounded by their own kind of people, they were still nervous. Everything was new and strange. A door opened ahead, and Kong Min emerged. He had been in meetings all day with his commanders, dealing with the aftermath of the battle. The Crimson Syndicate had been badly damaged, but Byung-ho himself had escaped. That meant the threat was not completely gone. "How are they adjusting?" Kong Min asked, looking at his children. "They are doing well," Taewon replied. "Just need time." Kong Min nodded. "And you? How are you adjusting?" Taewon smiled slightly. I went from being a simple mechanic to living on the most feared ship in the galaxy. It is a lot to take in. Yet you do not seem afraid, Kongmin observed. Should I be? Most people are terrified of me, Kongmin said. You have never shown fear, even when we first met. Taewon shrugged. You are Hannah and June's father. That matters more to me than your reputation. Something flickered in Kongmin's eyes. Respect, perhaps. Come, I want to show you something. He led them to a large chamber near the center of the ship. When the doors opened, Taewon gasped. It was a garden, a massive indoor garden with real trees, grass, and even a small stream. Light came from above, artificial but warm like sunlight. I had this made for them, Kongmin said, gesturing to Hannah and June. Dragons need space to fly and play. I wanted them to have somewhere that felt alive, not just metal and machinery. Hannah and June did not wait for permission. They launched themselves into the air with happy cries, flying in circles around the garden. They chased each other between the trees, their scales glinting in the artificial sunlight. Taewon watched them with a smile. This is perfect. Their mother would have loved it, Kongmin said quietly. Jia always said our children should grow up with beauty around them, not just weapons and war. It was the first time Kongmin had spoken about his mate since that first day. Taewon glanced at him and saw real pain in those ancient eyes. Tell me about her, Taewon said gently. Kongmin was quiet for a long moment. Then he began to speak. Jia was everything I was not, kind where I was ruthless, gentle where I was hard. She believed that power should be used to protect, not just control. He watched his children play. She made me want to be better. When she died, part of me died with her. She saved them, Taewon said. In her last moments, she made sure Hannah and June would survive. That took incredible courage. It did, Kongmin agreed, and you honored her sacrifice by keeping them alive. For that, I will be forever grateful. Over the following weeks, Taewon settled into his new life. His quarters on Eternal Night were 10 times larger than his room at the mining station. He had access to technology and resources he had never dreamed of. But the best part was watching Hannah and June grow. They were learning fast. Kongmin taught them about their heritage, about the power that flowed through their blood. He showed them how to transform, how to breathe energy instead of fire, how to survive in the vacuum of space. These were skills every Ryukai needed to know. But Taewon taught them different things. He taught them about kindness and compassion. He told them stories about humans who helped others even when it was difficult. He showed them that strength was not just about power, but about choosing to be gentle when you could be violent. Hannah and June absorbed it all like sponges. They became a perfect blend of both their teachers. Strong and powerful like their father, but kind and caring like Taewon. Daehyun and Hyen had also settled in well. Daehyun worked with the ship's engineers, his experience with mining equipment proving useful. Hyen joined the communications team, his computer skills highly valued. The other miners who had come found their own places. Kongmin kept his word. The humans were not servants. They were members of the crew, treated with respect and paid well for their work. Some of Kongmin's people had been skeptical at first, but they quickly learned that the humans were competent and trustworthy. One day, 3 months after leaving Hithera 7, alarms suddenly blared through the ship. Taewon was in the garden with Hannah and June when it happened. The twins, now the size of horses, immediately went on alert. Kongmin's voice came through the ship's communication system. All combat personnel to stations. We have found Byung-ho. This ends today. Taewon felt his stomach tighten. He had known this moment would come eventually. Kongmin would not let Byung-ho's attack go unpunished. He found Kongmin on the bridge, surrounded by tactical displays and crew members. The Shadow King looked calm, but Taewon could see the tension in his posture. Is there going to be a battle? Taewon asked. Yes, Kongmin replied. Byung-ho has gathered what remains of his fleet. He is making a final stand. He looked at Taewon. I need you to stay with Hannah and June. Keep them in the garden. Do not let them come to the bridge. They will want to help you, Taewon said. I know, but they are still young. This battle will be brutal. Kanmin's expression softened slightly. I have already lost their mother. I will not risk losing them too. Taewon nodded. I will keep them safe. He returned to the garden where Hannah and June were pacing anxiously. They could sense their father's tension through their bond. Your father is going to fight, Taewon told them. He wants you to stay here where it is safe. Hannah made a protesting sound. June's scales rippled with purple light, showing his agitation. They wanted to help. They wanted to protect their father just as they had protected the mining station. I know you are strong, Taewon said gently. I know you have power. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust others to fight while you wait. Your father needs to know you are safe. That knowledge will make him stronger. The twins did not like it, but they understood. They settled down next to Taewon, pressing their large bodies against him for comfort. The battle lasted 6 hours. They felt the ship shake from impacts. They heard explosions in the distance. The artificial sunlight in the garden flickered several times as power was diverted to weapons and shields. Taewon held Hannah and June close and tried not to imagine what was happening. He told them stories to distract them. Stories about Earth, about the small mining colony, about the snowstorm where he had found them. You were so small then, he said, scratching behind Hannah's horns. I could hold both of you in my arms. Now look at you, so big and strong. Finally, the shaking stopped. The twins rushed to him, making worried sounds and trying to heal his wounds with their golden light. Kanmin smiled and let them, running his hands over their heads. I am fine, he assured them. Just tired. He looked at Taewon over his children's heads. Thank you for keeping them safe. Always, Taewon replied. In the days after battle, word spread across the galaxy. The Shadow King had destroyed the Crimson Syndicate. Byung-ho was dead, and there were strange stories about humans living on Eternal Night. About a human who had saved the Shadow King's children and earned a place in his inner circle. Some dismissed these stories as myths. Others paid attention. Humans were supposed to be weak, insignificant. Yet this one had done what seemed impossible. Governments and criminals alike began to reconsider their views on humanity. Perhaps there was more to these beings than anyone had thought. Years passed. Hannah and June grew into magnificent adult dragons, powerful and wise. They never forgot the lessons Taewon had taught them. When they dealt with others, they were strong but fair, powerful but compassionate. They became known across the galaxy as the Dragon Twins who valued all life, who protected the weak, who judged others by their actions rather than their species. And always, Taewon was with them. He aged while they did not, becoming older and grayer. But they never cared about that. To them, he was family, the human who had walked into a snowstorm and changed their lives forever. Kanmin watched his children grow with pride. He saw how they had become better than him, how they had learned from both their heritage and from the strange human who had saved them. And he was grateful. One evening, many years after that first meeting, Kanmin and Taewon stood in the garden watching Hannah and June fly together under the artificial stars. Do you ever regret it? Kanmin asked, leaving your old life behind. Taewon thought about the cold mining station, the simple existence he had known. Then he looked at Hannah and June, at the family he had found in the most unlikely place. Not for a single moment, he said. Kanmin nodded slowly. When I first came to that planet, I thought I would either punish whoever took my children or reward them and send them away. I never imagined I would gain a friend. Is that what we are? Taewon asked. Friends. You are family, Kanmin corrected. You are the uncle my children chose for themselves. You are the voice of conscience in my household. You are proof that sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything. Taewon smiled. I just walked into a snowstorm and found 2 babies who needed help. And in doing so, you taught the galaxy's most feared family how to be better, Kanmin said. That is no small thing. They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the dragons play. Father and friend, criminal lord and simple mechanic, brought together by chance and bound by love for 2 extraordinary children. And in the dark corners of the galaxy, a new rule was whispered among criminals and law-abiding citizens alike. a rule that everyone learned quickly: never threaten humanity. The Shadow King's family would take it personally, because sometimes the most powerful bonds are not formed through blood or power, but through simple act of kindness in the middle of a storm.